Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mondays with Amanda. Here's a little crazy right there. Welcome to Mondays with Amanda. It's good to have you here. As you are logging in, please say hi to me. Let me know where you are coming from and who is here with me today. Let me know if you're watching live or hashtag replay so I know when you are getting to this. I did change the time. It's usually at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so I might miss a few of you guys because of that. But I know that you guys will be able to watch the replay. I had to adjust that just a little bit here. Hi, Jess. Nice to see you. Yeah, 11's going to be working a little bit better for me. Thank you for all the hearts and the emojis. It's good to have you guys all here with me today. We've kind of got an easygoing Mondays with Amanda today. I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions you might have. Hi, Allie. It's good to see you. Awesome. Okay. Where's my bigger picture here? Cool. Okay. So as people are getting on, let me know how your weekend went. I want to know what you guys did or what you were about this last weekend. How is your family doing? Let me know what is going on for you guys. And then today, our live basically is you get to ask me anything. I've got a few questions and I've got some wins that I wanted to go through and talk about. But I just wanted to touch base a little bit and answer any questions you might have or concerns. Our next workshop is going to start on August 10th. So we've got a few more weeks before the next Solve the Behavior Crisis workshop. So if you know of anybody that might be interested in coming to that workshop, let them know. We will be having that workshop in a different Facebook group. So you will need to sign up, and I will get that link out sometime this week. So you can go ahead and sign up. And when that group opens up, you guys will all be invited into that new group. That is so that we can just make it a little bit more intimate, and those people that really want to go through the next workshop can sign up for that and participate in that. So we'll probably have a little bit more of a smaller group in there, but I think that's great because then we can really get down to more of your specific questions and concerns that you might have within that workshop. So I'm super excited to go through that again. It's always an incredible opportunity to learn the principles and what I do in my monthly coaching program. Okay. So let's see. Good morning, Abigail. Abigail says, celebrated 3 years of marriage with my husband, had someone take the girls, and we watched a movie together. That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, Abigail. Taking a little bit of time to create a stronger connection with your spouse helps in the long run. That is awesome. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to click over here and pull up some of the wins that I saw. And really, I asked a question last week also. What's your biggest struggle with other people not understanding your uniquely wired child? That can really be a difficult time when people don't understand your child. Yeah. Hi, Gail. Jen says, I learned something new each workshop. Yes, Jen, you have been at every single one of my workshops. It's so good to have you there. Okay, so let's look at some of these wins we have. And as I always talk about, there's power behind gratitude and recognizing the good things that are going well in your life. They really help create an atmosphere of seeing more of the good things, right? It's another way of expanding our awareness. When we feel overwhelmed and we're stressed, we're worried about what's going on in our family, or we're struggling with a child who's uniquely wired. When we can purposefully look for the good things that are happening, even the smallest little things that our kids do or that we do, and we take note of those and we share those as a family, they really help open communication. Help us to see each other with fresh eyes, with new eyes, so that we can really work through whatever shows up in our family, right? So I said, what's going well this week? I dare you to post one thing. So we had Kristen Travis say that her meltdowns are occurring less. So that's a really, really important point. Many people have joined this group when they participated in the last few workshops. And many of the families that join have children who have meltdowns or tantrums, who might be aggressive and have some other diagnoses that make just life just more challenging. They're kids that are uniquely wired. They're not, the standard in the box kid, right? They're these out of the box kids. Yeah, so just when we are able to structure and create an environment along with our kids where meltdowns occur less, there's so much more harmony and peace, and life just works better. All right, so congratulations, Kristen. So good to hear that. Okay, Ann Walsh. So Ann Walsh Stukrad said she enjoyed good results from a mini lesson on respect. Hopefully, with improved communication, we can keep positive progress today. Yes, anytime that we learn a new principle, or we're looking for help with our parenting, with our personal way of being, whether that is understanding respect, it's really helps build the relationships in our family. So I'm a huge proponent, obviously, of education. That's why I have this group. That's why I coach families with uniquely wired kids and help improve focus and behavior, academics, and social emotional regulation, right? Those are key principles in being happy and being successful and really thriving in a family. So that's awesome, and good to hear that. Amber Geary said, my 7-year-old has started taking horse riding lessons. It's great to have something that she looks forward to. Yeah, isn't that important? We have some things that we look forward to. Anticipation is a very powerful, inspiring thing that we can have for our kids, right? If we have something they're excited about doing, then we are often able to help teach them new skills when they have something they're looking forward to. Yeah. It's definitely helped to open communication between us and strengthen our relationship. I'm seeing less aggression and less meltdowns. I'm so glad to hear that, Amber. Yes. So there's a connection there, right? So she's taking horse riding lessons. You've helped make that happen. She's feeling supported, I would guess. That's how my daughter felt. For most of the people on here, you guys know my story. I have 6 kids. I've always homeschooled. I have one child who is my uniquely wired child. And everything with her was hard. Everything, none of the other parenting tools and techniques or principles really, at least the way I was applying them, didn't work for her. They have never really worked for her. And so it ended up there was a lot of strain in our relationship. And she felt like a failure. I felt like a failure. It just was just frustrating, right? Beating our heads against the wall. My child feels not understood. And so I remember, similar to this, Amber, that she really wants to go to public school. She's always homeschooled. So when I got her signed up for public school back in the spring during COVID time, she wrote me for the first time a thank you letter. So she's almost 15. She's never written me a letter that says, she would maybe draw a few pictures, but she doesn't really like to write. It wasn't kind of her thing. But after I got her signed up and helped her do something that was really important to her, she wrote me the sweetest letter, and recognizing, where she might be weak and how much she appreciates me and how she's really trying hard. So yeah, helping meet the needs of our kids is very bonding, and that also helps them we model to them what it is that we need from them, right? We need them to help meet our needs as well. And as our communication strengthens, we are able to do that in our relationships. So great. Connie's saying here, I'm changing our kids' diet to eliminate the processed sugars and try to feed them healthier. Larger portions at mealtime. So far, fewer trips to the pantry for endless snacks and fewer fights about food. Maybe a few less tantrums, but time will tell with that. Yes, having a food routine, especially if you have a child who tends to be one who likes to just eat carbs and sugars. Sometimes because of that, their emotions and their ability to self-regulate is far more challenging. So the more that we can really crowd in proteins, crowd in healthy fats for our kids, the longer sustained they will feel satiated inside their body when they eat something, right? If we wake up and we eat pancakes and then in 2 hours we eat, a granola bar, and then in 2 hours we eat some cold cereal, we're going to be hungry every 2 hours. Now, for some kiddos who are really picky eaters, it takes a little bit more working with them, but over time you really can start crowding those things and helping your children have fewer food fights, less tantrums. They're able to regulate their blood sugar better so that they can emotionally regulate better as well. So I'm glad to hear that. Ashley Ford says that she is getting planned out for school this year. She's usually a big procrastinator. And this is probably the best I've done in our 6 years of homeschooling. I'm glad to hear that, Ashley. So exciting to be kind of ahead of the curve, right? I feel like you've got some stuff planned out. There's a lot of us that are going to be homeschooling this year because of the COVID and just kind of the restrictions in schools. So I'm a 20-year veteran of homeschooling, so that's another great question you could ask me if you have any questions on, how I homeschooled, what's worked for us. I'm happy to answer those as well. Amanda Barraza says, I'm making memories. I'm getting messy and laughing with my son. Yeah, that is so beautiful. I love hearing that. Amy says, I gave my 2 kids simple house chores, and the oldest one with ADHD and ODD suggested that they do the work together. That's a great suggestion. Don't you love it when your kids come up with something that's really unifying, working together, cooperation? Okay, and there's some other wonderful ones in here. I'm going to read yours, Abigail, though, because you're on here. It says, my 3-year-old cleaned the living room by herself, going on 3 days in a row. I'm not asking or anything. She just wants to help me and baby sister. She had a huge fit at bedtime, but I crossed her midline, let her scream, and hid into a pillow and then shake her craziness out. Afterwards, she was fidgety, but she told me that she was upset I washed her sheets without her knowing, and it made her upset because she didn't help me. Oh, well, so she was able to communicate that with you. There's so many wins in that, Abigail. It's so good to hear that. You've got your daughter who's helping you, support you, right? She did have a hard time. And you got her calm down, and then she was able to communicate why she was so upset, right? Major wins there. And Sherilyn Russell says, my son is helping and asking how my day is going. It's so cute. Yeah. When we are really meeting our kids' needs, we're connecting with them in a genuine way. We're looking for what's underneath the surface rather than just assuming they're trying to give us a hard time. We look for what's giving them a hard time. What are the stressors or the needs or the lack of skills that are getting in the way for our children, right? Because we know that all behavior is telling us something. It's letting us know something's not working. And how do we become those detectives, right? And get really curious about it. And that's how we help our kids to self-regulate. That's how we help our kids. So we help them discover what's going on for them so that we can make a plan, right? Okay. Awesome. Allie says, what time of day will you be doing the new workshop? Is it the same topic or new topic? Thank you. We will be going through some of the similar things, right? Because my program is based on specific principles, but it will not be the same videos. And my plan is to actually have a recorded video that you watch the night before, and then Monday through Thursday or Friday, I will have a live Q&A, right? So you'll be able to watch the video first, then you can come on live, talk with me, and I can answer questions and clarify anything. So it'll give you time to watch the video at any time during those 10 days. Okay. Jen says, I've got a win. I got to clean a couple rooms before the kids got into stuff they weren't supposed to. That is great to stay a little bit ahead of your kids some days, right? Gail's win is I tried visual clock along with reminders with outside play this weekend. And yay, my daughter came inside from playing outside with no tantrums or runaways. I'm so happy to hear that, Gail, because I know we were chatting about this last week. Yes, so those visual reminders. So what's really powerful about the visual clock for some of our uniquely wired kids and kind of reminders or a routine is that you can refer your child to the routine that you guys have created together instead of it being about you telling them what to do, right? So you refer them to kind of the agreement that you made in that routine. And as we've talked in our monthly coaching, we've talked about, creating these routines and then going back and having a check-in. How did that week work? How did it work? Is there something we want to shift or change, right? So you're always in a little bit of an openness to change your routine if there's a better way to do it, right? So you're working together as a team to figure out that routine. I'm so glad that that's working for you. Yes. Allie says, I finally ordered a sensory swing last night. I spent hours with my kids at the park and saw such a change in my son after using the swing. #win. Plus, Dad taught him how to swing on his own. When he was getting frustrated, he took deep breaths and reminded himself he just needs to work hard and he can do it. #win. Yes, Allie, you have been really, really amazing. Number one, in sharing your experiences with your child and how he has learned to calm himself down. That's such a powerful skill for your child to have. Recognizing when he's getting himself upset, what he can do to calm himself down and to reassure him, right? Because once we get out of that fight or flight part of our brain and we're more into this social engagement, into the calming part of our nervous system, through breathing and breath, then we can remember, oh, I just need to try a little harder, or maybe if I do it this way, I'll be able to accomplish the task, right? But if we're in fight or flight, it's really hard to make decisions or problem solve. And most of our kiddos just end up melting down or losing it or getting super frustrated. So I'm so glad to hear that, Allie. Gabby, please do a Monday with Amanda on homeschooling. Okay, I can do that, Gabby. For sure. I want to know specifically, Gabby, from you, what about homeschooling would you like me to discuss? Because I'm happy to do that. Do you want to talk about curriculum? Do you want to talk about philosophy? Do you want to talk about kind of the long-term vision of homeschooling? How I do homeschooling, what that looks like for us? Give me a little bit more detail, Gabby, on what you would want me to cover, because obviously 20 years of homeschooling, there's a lot to it. What time would the live be at? Oh, for the workshop? I haven't decided what time. I did them at 11 before. So let me get back to you on that one, Allie. That's a good question. Awesome. Okay. Ashley says, I'm planning to make interactive routine charts today, morning and bedtime routines, and to let them play outside more because screen time. Yes, I know. Like, screens are a love-hate relationship for me because they really provide a moment of space, right? And really for my children to kind of sit down and be entertained, right? But then there are repercussions to lots and lots of screen time, right? We have some kids who really can't handle a lot of screen time with their particular wiring. And so figuring out that balance of screen time is really a trick, isn't it? And then Allie says, lately my son has been bouncing back from a tantrum super quickly, #win. That's really encouraging, Allie. Yes. So our kids think, and I've mentioned this to you guys before. I talk about the turnaround time, right? Each of us and our kids are going to lose it, right? We're going to have bad days. We're going to have circumstances that are really, they feel too big for us to handle appropriately or handle in a calm manner. And that's okay, right? Because we're all going to fall on our face. It's going to happen. The skill that I talk to my parents about is when you fall on your face, right? Or you scream at your kid, right? Or you lose your patience. The idea is that you recognize what just happened and you pick yourself back up and you turn yourself around. So you make your turnaround time back to this calm and in control mom quicker and quicker each time. Yeah. And so kids can learn that as well, right? If we fall on our faces and then we start kind of berating ourselves or berating our kids, it's really hard. That keeps us in the fight or flight part of the brain. It does not open up the learning part of our brain, right? It keeps us shut down. It keeps us restricted. So the more that we can just notice, okay, I fell on my face. Okay, I lost my patience because it's really hard right now. And recognizing that will help that turnaround time be quicker. So you can get back up and say, okay, let's have a do-over, right? Okay. Gabby was asking, I wonder about curriculum, how it looks like in your house and how to keep your relationship with your kids while doing it. My kids get really angry at me when I'm trying to teach them. Yes. So that's a great question, Gabby. I would ask you, what is your plan for homeschooling? Are you just homeschooling until schools open up in a normal fashion? Because you approach homeschooling a little bit differently. In my case, if I'm homeschooling them for the long run or if I'm just homeschooling them for a small period of time. So I would need to know that from you. That would touch on the curriculum portion of it. The relationship part, in fact, I should repost it. About a year ago, I did 30 days of videos on my business page. And the day 30 was about, it's about the relationship, not so much about what you get done in your homeschooling, right? So the relationship that you have with your child is going to make homeschooling easier or more challenging. So relationship is super key, and recognizing that the relationship matters more than any subject, more than anything that they're learning in school. And if you can recognize that, then you're able to make choices and navigate through homeschool curriculum with a little bit better vision, because you're thinking, okay, my child is to a point where they need a break, and you help teach your child when to take those breaks. So again, it's about self-regulation. So I will see if you're thinking if it's short term until school gets back to normal, then you approach homeschooling just a little bit different. Okay, I could use guidance on building up my child's self-esteem. He struggles with acknowledging that he can do things. He's doing a lot better at trying, but sometimes he just doesn't believe in himself enough to try. Well, so this is interesting. So you could, Allie, approach it with sometimes when we don't try something, it really doesn't matter that much to us right now, right? And being having a close relationship with your child and being curious about why it is they don't want to try it, you can start to really listen a little bit more and learn a little bit more about your child in that particular circumstance. Okay. there are ways to consider like some of the skills that your child might have. In fact, this book right here, it's about ADHD, but in it is a workbook. It has 60 different workbooks in here. And I was just looking at it today, Allie. So I'm going to tell you one that was talking about that might be really helpful. It's really identifying your strengths and weaknesses. Now, we talked about this in the last workshop, right? Helping your child recognize their gifts and their talents, right? The things that they're naturally inclined to do, the things that they just do really well. Because kids who are uniquely wired don't necessarily fit in with all the other kids. And so oftentimes they have really strong likes and dislikes, talents and gifts, so that we can reframe the way that we see our children, and our children can actually reframe the way they see themselves. So instead of saying I'm bad at X, Y, or Z, oops, hold on, I have to sneeze. Bless me. Okay. They start to go, oh, here's what I'm really good at, right? Here's some areas that I could improve in, but I'm really going to focus on my gifts and talents and my superpowers, as Dana Abraham calls them. I really like that. They're the superpowers. Okay, so let me pull this up real quick. I'm going to pull this up real quick. And I'll show you one of these. You can get this. This is actually on my website. If you go to the resource tab on my website, you can order this book. And this is just a really cool activity here, building self-esteem. So having self-esteem basically is having confidence, right? And what are some things that your son can do to help build that self-esteem, right? And it gives you some ideas. There's also another checklist in here about recognizing the things that you're really good at, right? Recognizing your personality and embracing your differences rather than rejecting them. Right? This is about looking at our children with new eyes and helping our kids see themselves with new eyes. Yeah, so this is the book. It's called Thriving with ADHD. It is by Kelly Miller. It's an excellent, excellent book. I love this book. And it's got just activities in there for kids and adults to really thrive. And it's not, I mean, you can use this even if your child doesn't have ADHD. You can use it for any sort of uniquely wired kid. Yeah. Okay. I'm planning to homeschool for the next year. Yes. Okay. That is good to know. My husband is thinking of homeschooling my son next year too. Bless you. Yes. Oh, thank you. That's right. I did sneeze. Pokemon is his superpower. Yes, being passionate about things, right? Like, finding something that they love and going really, really deep on that, right? When you meet someone who is a master at something, somebody that has spent lots of time digging deep in one specific area, it can be so inspiring to us. So he has the capacity to find something that he really, really loves and then go and learn deeply in that area. Yeah, so that is a superpower. He even submitted a video of him battling Pokemon for the camp talent show. I was completely surprised because he's usually so shy. Yeah, so the Pokemon gives him confidence, Allie. Yeah, because he knows the information so well. It is, and I talk about this in learning, that when we read a book, we can read a book, and we can also let the book get through us, right? So we can get through, that's how it is. You can get through a book And you can also let a book get through you where it becomes a part of you, right? So in my homeschooling, we do lots of reading of classics. And these are the books that are worth reading over and over and over again, because every time you read them, there's something new and inspiring and principle based in these books. So for your son, he knows Pokemon. He knows it inside and out. He has total confidence for his age about Pokemon to just say, hey, this is how it works. That's an incredible thing to refer him back to when he wants to try something new, Allie, that maybe he hasn't gotten as skilled at. You can use his experience and his skill in Pokemon to say, hey, if you really love this, you're just going to need to put in the time like you did with the Pokemon. And he can gain and improve that self-esteem in that new area. And sometimes it's okay. In my homeschooling, when my kids are between 8 and 12-ish, we call it the love of learning phase, where they basically get to learn whatever they want to. They have to schedule out their day. There is a structured time, but not content. And their goal is to start studying all sorts of things. And so they'll study a bunch of things, or they might spend some time going really deep on one thing. So they have lots of freedom in their education during that age. And once they get to about 12 to 13, they move into what's called the scholar phase. And in the scholar phase, they recognize that they are in charge of their own education. And if they want to grow to be really an individual that has impact in the world, that makes a difference in the world, that becomes a leader of themselves and of their families, that they need to get a really solid education, and that they're the only ones that can choose to learn. So with my homeschooling philosophy, they're given lots of freedom when they're younger. From 0 to 8, it's basically learning right and wrong, good and bad, truth and error, how to work, how to play. Kind of this, we call it the core phase. And then they have the love of learning phase, and then they have the scholar phase, and then they have the mission phase. So I consider myself in mission phase, where I am working and serving out in the world and knowing that I have a mission. And so I instill that in my children's hearts, that they have a mission in this world to make a difference, that there's something only they can do, that they're skilled at, that they're passionate about, that they are inclined toward, that can make the world a better place. And that can be being a mother or father. That can be starting a business. That can be working in the community. That can be creating a new product or an idea, right? But when they have that core inside of them, number one, that they are unique and there's something only they can do, and that's why they need a great education, that's really the impetus to what we learn in our homeschool. Okay, so let's see. Yes, he's even learned to read so much better because he's been reading all the Pokemon cards. Yes, so that's one of an incredibly powerful thing when you are homeschooling. So obviously there's lots of different ways to learn. We in America have a kind of a certain way of looking at education, and that there's specific skills in education that every child needs to know. And I think those skills are valuable. But the long-term effect of education on individuals comes from their desire of the content of the information, right? So we can kind of learn and memorize what we need to, and then we really want to spend the time on the things that we're passionate about, right? And so when we're passionate about something in homeschooling, if you can kind of think, okay, so my son, like Allie's saying, is way into Pokemon, then we start adding some of the other subjects around the subject of Pokemon. Then they're able to work on math problems. They're able to do their writing from Pokemon stories or Pokemon descriptions, right? This type of a thing. So that's something that's really available in homeschooling. If you are going to be homeschooling through your public school, then there's a way to go about doing it so that your relationship isn't strained. And you're going to have to figure that out as you go, and not assume that because the school says you have to do X, Y, and Z all the time, that really your family or your child or you can actually do all of those things. So as a homeschooler, you have a lot more freedom to say, hey, listen, in our home, this is too much. This is a struggle for my son. And if you're asking him to do this for 3 hours, it's just not working for us here. We need to figure out something else. Okay. So I want you to feel empowered to say, I get that we're going to homeschool and we're going to go through this, we're going to go through the school district. But you need to say, be really open to adjusting a lot of these things so that your child doesn't just feel like they're being forced to be on the computer all day and to do all of these things, because it might not work for your family. And if you're working at home and your child is homeschooling, you guys have to be willing to adjust how these things are happening so that your relationship does not suffer. You can't do public school at home. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work the same way because you're a parent. You're not the teacher per se at school. There's a whole structure that happens in schools that really keeps a lot of kids very comfortable and they feel safe and secure because they're in this structure of school during the day, but you have them at home and there's all these other distractions. You really have to approach school quite a bit differently and be open to adjusting what it is that you are able to help your child do and turn in for school. I hope that makes sense. Allie says, the core phase is why I went into education. Yes. Any suggestions for toddlers that are in the dumping phase? Like dumping toys out all the time? Allie, let me know what that means, the dumping phase. Okay, Jen says, if you experience a backslide in behavior after a brain building program like rhythmic movements or SSP, any idea how long it might last? That's a great question, Jen. It's a great question. Because every child is unique and an individual, there really isn't kind of this set amount of time. But I know with the rhythmic movements, if there is some behavior that is concerning, right? Let's say have some regressing a little bit, or some negative things. I would suggest taking a couple days off. Now I know with the Safe and Sound protocol, it's a 5-day thing, and really, the negatives and the benefits of the SSP will take some time to really even show up. So I'm going to speak specifically to the rhythmic movement. I would take a break for a couple days on the rhythmic movements. If there's some real negative behavior that's concerning you, give the brain a little bit of a rest. It might be getting too much input too quickly. For the Safe and Sound protocol, what you can do is you can shorten the amount of the listening per day. So stretch out the listening even to 15 minutes a day rather than a half an hour or an hour a day. So you can stretch out the listening so that the input is coming at a slower rate for them. And then just wait. I would definitely give it 2 weeks after you finish the Safe and Sound protocol to let things adjust. Okay. Yes, dumping toys, walking around the classroom, dumping toys. Okay, so clearly the child wants to dump toys out for maybe the auditory part of it, maybe the feeling of picking up something heavy and dumping it out, the visual of it, right? So is there something he can do to meet that need? Right? That might not make this huge mess. And sitting down with that child and recognizing, okay, I notice that you're dumping all these toys out, right? And if it is a challenge or if it's a problem, expressing that to him or her and having that conversation. Hey, I've noticed do you know why you're dumping these out? Do you like the sound? Now they might not even know, so you can help with giving them some options of answers. But I would get curious. I would say, okay, maybe he wants to fill up a bunch of buckets with rice and dump them. Maybe that's calming to him, either the sound or the feeling or the movement. Yeah. So again, you're getting curious, Allie, talking to the child, seeing if there's a way to meet that that physical sensory need for him. Okay, that's awesome. So I have a couple more questions. Let's see. Allie, do you have directions I can give a teacher that goes along with the feelings and needs cards? So the feelings and needs cards, kind of the simplest instruction for them is to introduce the cards to the kids, introduce the feelings, and that might be one feeling at a time. Right now, if you have a feelings chart on the wall, you can maybe match up the cards to the feeling chart. If your kids are familiar with feelings and what they are like and how they show up in their own bodies. If not, I would introduce the feelings to the kids, right? And giving them an opportunity to pick through the cards. Even when you start maybe a circle time, you say, okay, how is everyone doing today? And you might say, okay, are you feeling mad, sad, glad, or silly, right? And invite them to kind of express the way that they're feeling, right? So that's going to be not only for self-empathy, but for other people to recognize, hey, Billy isn't feeling great today, right? And then you can also you can introduce them to the needs cards. Okay, once it's kind of like vocabulary. They need to be introduced to information on the cards separately. And then you connect them, right? You say, okay, here's these feelings, and these feelings come from either one of these needs being met or not met. So there's 2 books that the cards actually come from. So I'm going to show you these 2 books. One of them is on my website at wholebraingym.com in the resource section, and that is this book, The No Fault Classroom. It's an amazing book. I love this book. It ends up teaching the whole classroom how to create a no-fault classroom where everyone recognizes that we all have needs and how can we meet our needs so that nobody has to be at fault. Every action that we take, they talk about in here, is to meet a need. Now, if we don't see that it was just trying to meet a need and it just looked annoying or overwhelming or frustrating, then we can end up blaming the other person, saying, you're being too loud, or you should stop that, or, right? But every action we take is to meet a need. So if we can recognize what needs are wanting to be met, then we can create an environment where nobody's at fault. We're just helping meet needs. Okay? So, and that's what I would say about the dumping of the blocks. There is a need there. So what is the need? And help to get curious about what that need is. Maybe he needs some other physical activities. If dumping out the toys is causing some chaos with the other kids or the classroom, then what can we find that child needs to help meet that need? Okay, so that's the teacher one, and this one is kind of the parent one. Respectful parent, respectful kids. And in the back of this book, it's by the same authors, are the feelings and needs cards as well. Let me show you here. Okay. Now, when you come to the workshop, I actually give those feelings and need cards. I will. You get them for free for participating in the workshop. So that'll be in just a couple more weeks. If you are interested and don't have your own set, if you participate in the workshop, you will be able to get those. Lauren is asking, what's the best way to obtain a diagnosis of sensory processing disorder? That would be an OT if they are trained in sensory processing. Neuropsych evaluation, they could probably identify that there is some sensory things going on. Psychologist, depending on if they've been trained in sensory processing. So that's really the key to those is when you go to make an appointment or talk to these doctors, OTs, that's really the field of medicine that works with sensory processing. Okay. So this is the lady that pretty much, Dr. Jean Ayers, now she's passed away, but she is the one is kind of the grand, like she's like the one that basically recognized this whole sensory processing and sensory integration. So This is an amazing book you could get and read about for your child. There's a couple other amazing books on sensory processing. But contact an OT, PT, not usually, occupational therapist, and look for one who has been trained in sensory processing and that you're trying to get a test done for that. Dr. Ayers here has an actual program that tests kids for sensory processing, but they will have had to have been trained and have the sensory processing testing kit. So I hope that's helpful, Lauren. I would go with an OT first. Yeah, I would go with an OT first. The neuropsych can kind of recognize that there's some sensory issues, but I do not think that they can give the diagnosis of SBD. You're welcome. You're totally welcome. Okay, let's see. I have a toddler that I can clearly tell hasn't connected the two sides of his brain, struggles to cross the midline even when playing, and low verbal skills. I think he struggles understanding why he's doing what he's doing. Suggestions on how to help him in the classroom. I would do rhythmic movement with him. I keep pulling out books. I know, I apologize. It wasn't supposed to be the library edition of today. In this book, The Rhythmic Movement Alley, let me see where it's at, in the very back, there's actually some hands and knees rhythmic movements that are in the book that you can teach the kids to do each day that will help integrate both sides of the brain and help build up the development of the brain. Okay? And these are exercises that you just do on your hands and knees. They are exercises that are developmental movements that you can do in a classroom with all the kids. And it's not you doing the rhythmic movements, it's them doing them as a classroom, as a class. Yeah. Cool. In fact, there's one teacher that teaches these in her classroom, and it's Tuesdays with Toomey, I think is what it's called. And Allie, I will post that. I will post that in the group, so you can see that. So you might be able to refer to that. But I would say if he has low verbal skills, he's having a hard time crossing the midline, he needs to do activities that will improve those. Yeah. Okay. And those can just be fun activities. Like the zoo animal activities, those are all helpful. Those are all developmental activities. Okay. So I think you have those. Those were in the resources that I handed out last week on the business page when we went over the disorganized brain. Okay. So if you did those consistently every day in class, that will help that child. Yeah. Yes, you are very welcome. Okay. I did have one more question. It says, how can I teach my child to follow directions? Grab this book from my hand, get up from the sofa, get a glass of water, please. How do I help our child follow directions or instructions? Okay. So the first thing that came up for me on this one, depending on your child, I would ask, where on the parenting influence pyramid are you struggling with your child? Okay. Are you able to listen and learn from them? Are you able to teach them, right? If you're not able to teach them, then remember each level of that pyramid, you go right below it to learn to work on the next level. How is the connection you have with your child? The second thing is, are they having any processing challenges? When you give an instruction, do you know if they actually heard you? Right? Because we can hear noises, but it doesn't necessarily mean we process that. For some kids, processing takes up to 2 minutes for their brain to really process it. So I will give you a little bit of something that I did with my daughter. I would actually prep her before I asked her to do something. I would get her attention in a calm, loving way, kind of laid back. I'd be say, hey, I need you to get ready for an instruction. And she knew that I was going to ask her to do something or ask her a question. Okay. But sometimes I would say, I need you to get ready for a question, which just meant I was giving her time to process in her brain that I'm going to now ask her to do something. And she was less likely to be reactive, to ignore me, to get upset, because with some kids, especially if they are on the spectrum, ADHD, they're uniquely wired, okay? Our relationships, like we've talked about, can be strained. We are often we get into a habit of talking to our kids a certain way where we trigger one another, okay? So that's why parenting really needs to be an awareness-based change, an awareness of how we're being as parents and how we're communicating. Because if we have kids who very easily go over to fight or flight, right, where their sympathetic nervous system is activated and now they're like, right? It shuts down their ability really to hear, to understand, to follow directions, right? And so that's why it's so important for you as a parent to learn how to come to a calm place and speak to them clearly. And this is my suggestion, is saying, okay, I need you to get ready for an instruction. And you need to have a little bit more patience for some of our kids, because sometimes they don't process the information, or they had another plan in that moment. And if we just tell them to do it and then they don't do it and then we get mad at them, it just causes challenges, right? And then for some of our kids, they just ignore us, right? Or they honestly don't hear us because they're so hyper-focused on what they're doing. So I would ask you, what's going on when they're not following the directions, right? There's something else happening in the situation. And if I knew a little bit more, I could probably help you a little bit more like that. But I would say prep them. Okay, I need you to get ready for an instruction, right? Or we say, hey, in about 10 minutes, we have to leave because we've got this other appointment. Can you please start winding down so that we can leave and get there on time, right? And we do it in a respectful way, because as an individual, I want to give respect as much as I want respect back. Okay. There are times where I just say, this is what's happening and this is not safe. We are going to stop. So I'm always the leader, but I'm a benevolent leader. I'm someone who sees the other person and says they have feelings and needs and they're an individual. They're not just an object in my way or an individual giving me a hard time, right? So if I can check myself and be aware of what it is that I'm feeling in that moment, sometimes when my child doesn't do what I ask, I check my own self first and say, okay, what's going on with me and how's my child doing right now? So I hope that is helpful. Prepping your child can be very powerful. I've done the same thing with when I needed to give a no answer. So my child asked me for something and I said, hey, let me think about it for a minute. Or I would just say, hey, I need you to get ready for a no answer. And I would prep her before I told her no. Because if I just told her no, she'd get really mad. But if I would prep her and say, hey, I need you to get ready for a no answer, she could actually collect herself and accept the no answer. Because I didn't just say no and it didn't automatically trigger into fight or flight. Okay, we went a little longer than I thought we were going to do today, but I'm so glad you guys came. Let's see if there's any other questions. Yes. Thank you so much. Yep, on my desk right here. Cool. Since you suggested prepping way back in April, it's made a huge difference for my kid. It does. It does. Because it really gives you an idea of where they're coming from, right? You're thinking, okay, I'm going to think about, here's the goal I'm going for. This is what I need my child to do. How can I help that go right? How can I help things go right? Right? Awesome. Okay, everyone. This was so much fun. It's so good to have all of you guys on here visiting with me today. And thanks for all of your questions. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And I'm actually going on vacation, but I will be here next week. The goal is to talk next week with Jen about routines and making schedules. So next Monday is going to be pretty awesome. And we're going to give you guys some tools and some ideas to make routines so that you can have greater success in your home. So we will talk to you next week, everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.